I have received a letter from Ron Mark seeking to debate under order. I've received a letter from Ron Mark seeking to debate under Standing Order 389 the release of the New Zealand Defence White Paper today. The release of the paper is a particular case of recent occurrence and involving ministerial responsibility. The more difficult test is whether the release of the White Paper requires the urgent attention of the House and whether there are other parliamentary means of debating the subject. The White Paper sets out a 15-year spending plan. Select committees are currently carrying out the examination of estimates and they will subsequently be debated in this House. This provides an opportunity to debate the government spending in relation to defence. Given the duration of the plan set out in the White Paper, there will also be ample ongoing opportunities to scrutinise it. I am not convinced that the release of the White Paper has such an element of urgency that it warrants the setting aside of the normal business of the House. The application is therefore declined. Would some honourable member care to move that the House take note of miscellaneous business?
Sir, I now move.
The Fletcher Taputai.
Thank you, and tēnā koe, Mr Speaker.
Tēnā koe.
The more and more New Zealand First and the New Zealand public are beginning to see that the battle against the National Party is rather a battle against their sponsors, sir.
That's right.
And so they avoid issues of national significance and put them aside and in fact deny they even exist. I want to talk today and in this time slot about the government not talking about the Silver Fern Farms, Mr Speaker. In fact, it is very clear that they would rather disavow any knowledge and claim that they do not know what's going on. What the reality is, though, is it highlights their lack of commitment to the rural community and our farmers. But we know that New Zealand First for 23 years has stood up in this House and supported and backed marginalised New Zealanders, and more we are beginning to see that it is the rural community and New Zealand farmers who are actually being marginalised by that party across the House today. The Right Honourable Winston Peters has never been afraid to stand up and take a battle to the powers that may prevail at any given time, but that party refuses to acknowledge that there's even a problem. Either they can't be bothered, or they're not interested, or they have a self-interest in denying that there is a problem. The News Hub's article from last week, sir, was an opportunity for the New Zealand public to finally see that there is a fundamental flaw within the regulatory framework and oversight of this country when it comes to the Financial Markets Authority. These concerns arise particularly from the Shanghai Meiling's current application for the so-called joint venture with Silver Fern Farms, New Zealand's largest meat exporter and a code-listed company here in New Zealand. Sir, it is now clear that Silver Fern Farms did not advise their shareholders correctly or honestly on their current levels of debt, and most particularly claims to the shareholders that they couldn't get forward projections for more than a year have been proved to be demonstrably false. I say this because the evidence New Zealand First has proves conclusively that the statement was false and shows that there were forward projections, but those 4-year projections were actually given to the potential overseas investors and not the shareholders and the farmers of New Zealanders. It's just... And critically, we now know that 574 pages of documentation went to the overseas investors, but this same information was withheld, and I say it again, withheld from the shareholders, Mr Speaker. New Zealand First, in fact, laid complaints over the sale of Silver Fern Farms with the Financial Markets Authority. We actually supplied the documentation so that the authority could follow up. But they failed to do this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they did not even call us once to follow up on the submissions we made to them. They did not include an accurate chronological order of the financial accounts, which would be critical to any meaningful investigation. The FMA failed to send anyone into Silver Farm's head office to actually ask questions of the management and the board. Not a single person actually went to have that conversation. Sir, this so-called national government needs to be held to account, and New Zealand First does not intend to let highly paid public officials to get away with anything less than at the very least, competent performance. They should consider themselves here now warned that we will be holding them to account. New Zealand First has new information which will reveal the truth to the New Zealand public, the shareholders and the owners of Silver Fern Farms, serious documents that could construe serious fraud. This is a dirty deal, Mr. Speaker, and one that speaks to the aspirations of the National Party and the tenants they call farmers in New Zealand. Thank you.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Jerry